So we came in with an idea, we tested, and we didn't like it. We went out again. So we tried everything since the beginning. And I think that's the key of the success.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this very special episode. We're going to talk about collaboration between product management and software engineers with three very special guests from the Digital Product School at the university, a technical university of Munich. We have with us Michael Stockerl, Miki. Hi, Miki.
Hi.
Stefan. Hi, Stefan.
Hello.
And Bella. Hi, Bella.
Hi.
So Miki is the director of DPS and has worked as a software engineer with several teams in many different setups. Before that, he gathered experience, apologies for that, in smaller startups in Munich and Germany's biggest QA platform, which is Gute Frage, if I remember correctly. Indeed. And Stefan is a trained journalist who slipped into product management through content management and e-commerce. He's worked at Amazon and Haymarket, did several hundred user interviews and tests, and witnessed dozens of teams at DPS, the Digital Product School we're going to talk about as well today. Finally, Bella is a software engineer at DPS. She helps teams with various software and hardware engineering tasks. And she was also previously a alumni at DPS, correct, Bella?
Yes.
All right, so you have firsthand experience of what we're going to talk about. So DPS is a digital product school in Munich. You guys have been organizing this for a few years. It's like an accelerated entrepreneur technology startup program. So walk us a little bit through that program and what are the aspects of that program for the teams that participate that you want to highlight. So let's start with Miki first.
Oh, I thought we start with Stefan.
Maybe I can answer that because I was there when basically the idea of DPS was born.
So go for it then, Stefan.
So the original idea of DPS came from Thomas Zeller, who is, in the meantime, he was one of the managing directors of Unternehmertum. And Unternehmertum is one of the biggest, or the biggest entrepreneurship center in Europe, I think. And DPS is not attached directly to the Technical University of Munich, but it is a program run by Unternehmertum, that entrepreneurship center. And late 2016, he has the idea when he was talking with several partners of DPS from the German industry who struggled with digitalization issues, that there's actually a program missing where all the well-known best practice frameworks and methods are connected to actually gathering the experience of working in cross-functional teams and developing digital products. So this is how DPS was born. So the company partners like, so the automotive companies, BMW, Audi, and Daimler, and others like SAP, decided to be part of DPS and send their employees to us. And we created teams, cross-functional teams that develop digital products and filled them with talents from all over the world. So meaning students.
What do you guys define as cross-functional at DPS?
Yeah, so all the teams consist of product managers, software engineers, interaction designers, and AI engineers.
And those are the 4 skills that your students are developing at DPS, right?
Yeah, so we consider that they have actually already acquired the hard skills. And what DPS is about to glue these skills together with soft skills and the experience of having worked in an interdisciplinary team. And this is basically the core value of DPS to inject this experience in a very, very concentrated way with this 3 months program.
And it's also very entrepreneurial. That's one of the things, as I started working with you guys a few years ago, that was one of the things that really attracted me about this collaboration, is that it is very entrepreneurial. Can you guys speak to that?
About the entrepreneurial aspect of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the second thought behind DPS, was that in the whole entire landscape of Unternehmertum programs, which are directed at future entrepreneurs, there was a little gap for people who sort of felt they might be an entrepreneur someday, but didn't really do the first step yet. So this is where DPS is trying to close that gap as well.
How about Bella and Mickey? What do you guys have to add? Like, you guys are software engineers from background. You've seen the program now for a few, well, at least a few times in the case of Bella, but a few years in the case of Mickey. What does the product look? Sorry, what does the DPS, the Digital Product School, look like from a software engineering perspective?
Shall I start or you start? Okay. So from my point of view is that DPS is not only learning about hard skills, so it's not only learning software, but it's more about how to work in a cross-functional team, as Stefan said. It's more about how to learn with a PM, what you can learn how you can work with an UI UX designer, and how you can merge things with an AI engineer. So it's more about teamwork than the work that the software engineer would do alone.
I like this answer a lot because you get these answers across all the software engineers after they attended DPS. Before they start, they expect to be it like a coding experience for them, that they have like an awesome company behind them, like BMW, and then they build something for them. And they get a little bit nervous when they don't start coding. But afterwards, they really see the value of Digital Product School, that they learned how to collaborate with interaction designers, how to collaborate with product managers, or at least learn what doesn't work in the collaboration. And afterwards, software engineers appreciate it. During the program, sometimes they don't appreciate it that much.
I remember in several of the batches that I've participated in, these interaction questions were raised, but maybe that's just one of the topics that are raised often. I mean, you guys have done 10 batches now, right? And that's what, about 80 teams?
Almost.
Yeah. So what do you think have been the key insights from running this program, which is basically creating a product almost from scratch? There's an idea to start with, right? And you guys can explain to us how that idea is given to the team. So there's just an idea to start with. And what have you seen are the biggest problems that teams go through in that evolution of the few weeks they are there? I think it's 3 months, right? 12 weeks? Yeah, so 12 weeks, the 12 weeks they are there. What do you think are the key insights from that? As you said, Mickey, emerging realization that working in a team is a lot more than just writing code.
Yeah, maybe regarding the typical challenges we see. So the teams are given, so at least the company teams. So I have to say at DPS we have two types of teams. So one type is the company teams, where one of our partners is involved, and they provide so-called problem space, which is a very broad description of a field where that might where several pain points might be in, and the team is entitled to do research and uncover those pain points before they decide in order which pain point to tackle. And for most of the teams, this is the first challenge. So like, of course, we embrace the fact that we have diverse teams, and diverse being in the sense of culture, age, background, professional experience, stuff like this. So students and employees from the companies work together, and they all have different expectations. And they need to decide on which direction to go. And this is one of the main challenges in the beginning, and this is where we try to support them. And yeah, that's
So explain to us, Stefan, how do the teams get started? How is the idea given to the team? Let's say they're working with BMW, right? And there's an idea to start with. Like, what kind of things are those ideas that they get started collaborating on?
Of course, there's some thought behind the problem space, but we are trying to push our partners to not communicating an idea already. So it should be more like a rough vision, like, wouldn't it be great if there's no cars in inner cities anymore? Stuff like this.
And you guys use that specific format, right? Wouldn't it be great if?
Yes.
So why did you guys come to that, to use that formula?
So in the beginning, I mean, obviously none of us is a professional coach or mentor or didn't do something like this before DPS. So we started from scratch and just did what we felt was right. And in batch one, we had these problem spaces, which consisted of only one word, like fine dust. And these, of course, somehow that map matched the strategy of the partner, and they hoped that the teams would come up with something that complements their current business or strategy, but turned out to be too broad and not visionary from the partner's perspective. So we try to find a format for the partners that enabled them to be much, or to make it easier for them to communicate what's actually the thought behind this topic. And they really embraced the wouldn't it be great question.
Yeah, and the wouldn't it be great question is kind of starting the exploration of those pain points. And as you said, that's actually one of the challenges. So let's hear it from the software engineers. Bella, from your perspective, when you were a student part of DPS, how did it feel to go through that first phase of trying to define and find the right pain point to tackle?
I remember I was a company team, and I remember we struggled a lot. Like everyone in my team, we're about to cry. We were calling core team every day. So we were not we were really trying to find the pain points of our company and to really solve them. And we did like a very good job, I think. And we did that because in the early phase, we tried everything. So we came in with an idea, we tested, and we didn't like it. We went out again. So we tried everything since the beginning. And I think that's the key of the success.
So when you said you tried everything, you meant you tried to come up with different pain points and do interviews, user tests to figure out which ones stuck more.
Yeah, we went to interviews like every day. We went at the place, exactly the place our company was. We had interviews from normal employers to head of different fields. So we made almost every kind of user testing we had the opportunity to do. Yeah.
How about you, Mickey? You've worked with many software engineers that were struggling through that first challenge, and you were, of course, trying to help them. So how did it go?
It goes pretty good. So although they are complaining all the time, I think also Stefan was always surprised how good the software engineers are supporting the team in this phase. So we started our journey, and we expected that our biggest issue will be to somehow force the software engineers to do user research. But somehow they always doing it. And most of the time they even like emphasizing it within the team. So if they feel like there was not real validation done, they tell the rest of the team, and especially they tell the product managers.
Pushing them.
Yeah, this for me was a real key insight that it surprised me, because I was not that type. I was trying to avoid user research as much as possible, and I tried to help them by not avoiding it so much like I does. But they are doing it in the end, and they are enjoying it, and they see the real benefit of that in the end.
How about the product manager view on that early phase collaboration, Stefan?
The challenges they face, especially when they are being sent from a company, is to not having given a framework that they just need to apply and then automatically come to a result. So what we're trying to bring across to the PMs from the very, very beginning is that your most important tool as a PM is your brain. You will gather loads of insights, but nobody will tell you what the next step would be. So that you as a team should decide. And this is something we really, really stress towards the teams, that the entire team is responsible for the user experience of the product that they are going to build. And for some company people, this is hard to embrace and hard to learn, because they've learned sometimes throughout decades that failure is not an option, and then we come along.
You must follow the process, right?
Exactly, and you need to rethink think everything through so that it's waterproof before you do the next step, and that's not the case, and they really have a hard time trying to fail fast and to learn.
So basically what you're saying, Stefan, is that for PMs, this DPS product program, for PMs that come from companies, it is also kind of a transformation process for them to realize that the role of a PM is a lot more than just managing price tables, product spec sheets, and following some process.
Exactly. So I used to call them up once the program is over. So usually a couple of months after that. And then they are able to put everything together. They experience at DPS, and what almost all of them say that this experience was the most valuable experience in their career. And this is astonishing to me, because we're talking about people who are project managers in their companies for 10, 20 years.
Indeed. Actually, there's a lot. I think there's a big chunk of content to go through that transformation, but we want to dive deeper into the collaboration between product managers and software engineers. Now, you guys run a very accelerated program. It's 3 months to go from just the wouldn't it be great if question all the way to a released product. Release quotation marks, of course, because it's not a full-fledged release, but it is, of course, exposure to the market. So what have you seen? Let's start with you, Stefan. What have you seen are the main challenges that arise in that collaboration between PM and software engineer in this very quick 3-month program?
There are several challenges teams face, but it all comes down to communication. So the way they communicate is totally different, depending on what they experienced in the past. On the other hand, or on top of that, there's several differences in the expectations somebody has regarding work that's going to be done. I have to. Well, let me rephrase that. So the PMs especially from the companies, they are used to tell people how to do things, because many companies, or in many companies, the leadership role is defined by the hard skills, or the domain knowledge, and this is how leaders in those companies define themselves. So they don't see them that much as enablers, but more as okay, I am a leader, and usually they became a leader because of their domain knowledge, not because of their leadership skills.
And then in this program, they are put into a context where the domain knowledge is useful, but not really, and certainly not very many problems come from a domain, because they might even be in a totally different domain, right? So it is more about collaboration and so on. So how do people react to that? Because I remember, at least in some of the product management workshops that we've done there, that people came to me with questions about conflicts, right? You know, how do I get UX interaction designer to do X and so on?
Yeah. So, I mean, usually we are pretty much equipped to deal with things like this. So we do one-on-ones on a regular basis and let them brain pack our experiences and stuff like this. But from time to time, people, especially when they feel desperate, they fall back into their company behavior, so to say, and then things, then we need to take over the communication within the team and sort things out.
How about the software engineering perspective? Bella, you've been on the alumni group. You've been, going through the program. How did you experience that PM and software engineer collaboration?
I think the most important key between the collaboration of the PM and a software engineer is that they have the same goal. So in my team, we had 2 PMs, and both PMs, they had this goal to have like a viable product in the end. And they motivated us during the whole road that you are here and you should work and we should do like an amazing product in the end. So this motivation they gave us was also reflected in the product in the end, and also like in our friendship after DPS.
How about Mickey's perspective?
I also want to emphasize the communication part of things, and especially in the end, like the last couple of weeks, where we have like a deadline looming, the final sprint review, like the last thing they are working towards to, and this is a time where we notice how good a PM actually is. So how good are they communicating, and how much trust is in the team already. Like, even if someone is not communicating clearly, they are not afraid to tell something if it's not working. If it's not working like that, then we see a lot of miscommunication. They're creating pressures for each other, like product managers trying to solve the problem by deadlines, like creating some deadlines for the engineers. And by that, they create like even more pressure than they thought with the software engineers, and everything gets more and more delayed. What's often forgotten in the end is that software engineers helped in the beginning defining the problem and finding a solution. And to do their actual work, they have to wait until the very end, until everyone else is ready. And then oftentimes they only have a couple of days, weeks to actually build something. And in this time, some people don't have so much to do anymore because they are like already ahead of the software engineers. And then there starts kind of complaining about software engineers. Like, they are too slow, it's not gonna to work. But
that sounds very much like almost every single project meeting I've been at, right? So replace software engineer with quality engineer or with marketing or whatever. And there's always somebody who's last on the chain, right? And everybody else complains about the last person on the chain. How do you guys help the teams kind of overcome that unfortunate necessity of having to do some work up front in order to be able to develop the product in the end?
So we try to start not by the teamwork itself, but by creating a team, so that from day one they start to trust each other, and also to see the pains of the other people in the team. Because at some point, software engineers get nervous because they see, okay, there is not much time left for us to actually build things. And when we succeed, like all the team sees the issue and thinks of way, how can we create something the software engineers can already start working with. This is the situation when it works. When it doesn't work, we have the problem that it's like, yeah, you will work on that later. But with the one-on-ones and team development workshops, we put a great emphasis on creating teams and not so much like people in one pot.
Maybe I can talk about the one-on-ones a bit more, because for the PMs, that's turned out to be a crucial thing. Experiencing one-on-one facilitated by somebody who doesn't have the domain knowledge, but still is able to drive forward the personal development of somebody. Yeah? So each team gets assigned a team mentor from the core team, and that team mentor is doing the one-on-ones with the team members. And during that sessions, they work on things like, okay, what are you hoping to accomplish on the personal level here? And let's discuss how you can achieve this or do the first steps towards this. And several PMs told me after DPS that these one-on-ones were sort of an eye-opener to them how to do proper agile leadership. There are some PMs who manage to leverage this revelation during the batch. And those are usually the ones that have the entire team behind them, and where you can feel that the team is working towards a common vision.
So what you guys do is that you actually, from the start of the program, work on what Miki called creating a team, right? Like those one-on-ones and the coaching that you guys give the team members is in order to generate that ability to collaborate.
Exactly.
Now, of course, our listeners have many of those challenges you just described at work also every day. So let's dive into some of the experience you have with solving or trying to solve those obstacles. We've talked about the one-on-ones, obviously, but what have you learned are effective ways to get the PMs and the software engineers to collaborate the right way? Like, okay, so you've talked about the one-on-ones, right? So which are with everybody in the team, but what else have you guys learned about creating that productive collaboration between PMs and software engineers? Maybe Miki can start this time.
Yep. Like what doesn't work sometimes is that communication from software engineers is clear towards the product managers, so that the product manager really understand what the software engineers are actually doing and how long it will take until it's done. Like in batch 5, there was like the first team where I actually observed this problem, and that this was the problem for the whole team also later. And then we did some like exercises. Whenever there was a planning, we started that the product manager should point out the words they didn't understand. And then it was the task of the software engineer to refine the task in a way that product manager should be able to understand it. And we did it as often until there was no like underlying word anymore. So creating like a common understanding for the people, or build up a common vocabulary between them. Similar to that, we try to use tools for example, GitHub, classical tool for software engineers. But in the beginning of the batch, we also onboard the product managers there. They should contribute some code for a small website, so that they get used to tools software engineers are using, and somehow see how the software engineers are working, that they like actually see the stuff and not just hear it.
So right, like making them walk in each other's shoes, basically.
Exactly.
All right. How about you, Bella? I mean, you were a software engineer yourself. So how did you experience what works in helping PMs and software engineers to collaborate?
I think everything starts since the morning. So in the morning we have like a daily, and if anyone was late, then we had to bring cookies. So this create like a very nice team building between us. And then we also did some other kind of team building exercises. So we ate lunch together, we went for dinner, we went for a movie together, and we did a lot of team buildings kind of things. And also we were trying to go into each other's shoes, as you said. So even that the story map is considered like a kind of PM kind of job, we were all trying to put our ideas into the story map, to change the story map and to improve it over time. So we were like, also the PMs had some knowledge in the software engineering part at my team. So they also give ideas like, why you don't do it like this? So why you don't separate the front end like this and the back end like this? So we were like mixing our job, and that was very nice.
How about the PM perspective, Stefan? What works in helping PMs and software engineers collaborate?
So what we always see what accelerates the process tremendously is when the teams get visual when discussing. So, and teams really have a hard time not getting complaints from the core team when they sit around their laptops and everybody's staring at their screens while discussing things. So our mantra basically is always be capturing, be it on the whiteboard or discussing on the storyboard, on the story map, Bella mentioned already. And as soon as we introduce this, and of course in the beginning you have to force it somehow, then we see that the teams take up speed, really, really significantly.
Visualize all the things then.
Yeah, just to create a shared understanding and to uncover misconceptions in communication and stuff like this.
So there's a couple of questions I still have. We're getting close to the end though. So you guys specifically chose to call the role that designs the idea of the product together with the whole team, but kind of drives that design of the vision, design of the idea. You called it product manager. And of course, many of our listeners are very familiar as well with the product owner. And having seen some of the things you guys do, there's a lot of product owner in the product managers you have at DPS. So why did you guys decide to call that role product manager and not product owner? Stefan.
Basically, because we felt that product owner would sort of establish constraints towards Scrum. So it would suggest that we are only using Scrum, which is not the case. We're doing a very, very freestylish version of Scrum because we want to emphasize the fact that the teams not only collaborate within within the team, but that the teams collaborate with each other and help out each other. So for instance, the sprint review is open. So all the teams witness the sprint review of the other teams. So that's the one nominal thing that is for the reason. And the other reason is that the classic or the role or the name product owner falls short on the whole description of being responsible for the user experience, the business, and oh my God, what's the third type of things? Business, technology, and design. And since we get the participants from all sorts of industries, we felt that the product manager is more appropriate here.
Bella and Mickey, you guys have worked also with product owners, and of course at DPS. How do you see that difference between what a product owner role could be or is defined in Scrum and what your product managers do at DPS? Let's start with Bella.
So our product managers in DPS, they are more into not owning the product, because the product is for all the team members. So they try to manage all the workflow into DPS. So they try to see what everyone is working on, how to make the team more effective, and how to get the team be more together and have more work done and fun done together. This is how I see it from a DPS point of view.
Yeah, that's almost exactly the same like my answer would have been. So product owner for me is always like there's someone else responsible for the product, not me as a software engineer. But we really want to emphasize that the whole team is owning the product, and everyone needs to do their part in order to make the product great. And it's more like about managing a team without actually having the power to do that. Is like one of the major tasks of the product managers at DPS, and I think also in a lot of companies, to really create a vision for the team, and that the whole team works towards the same goal, is the task of the product manager.
Yeah, leveraging the team and the resources you have within the team, and not blaming the team when things go wrong. So that's basically, at the end of the day, this what we try to bring across to the product managers.
So, and is that what you see will become more importantly, specifically in the software-based product industries? Like, what do you think will become the most important set of skills for PMs as time goes by?
To be great with people, basically. So being able to bring the best out of every team, or out of any team you have. And what we learned at DPS, there's no such thing like a bad team or people who are not a good match. I mean, you have to imagine we have to do the recruitment every 3 months, and we have we recruit up to 50 people for these 4 roles, and we only have limited time to get to know them. And looking at this, it's surprisingly rarely the case that we have someone, or we end up with someone who does not work at all in the team. So this is, for me, it's a major learning at DPS, so that you can basically work with anyone. So there's great stuff in anyone. And a good product manager brings out this.
How about Bella? What do you think will become more and more important in the product development in software industry as we go forward, for product manager skills specifically?
I think that will become very important and will increase is for sure the vision the PM should have, and also the way he uses the resources he gets from the company or from the work he's doing. So the resources he has, like the software engineers, the designers, the other team members, like what resources he have and how much he can do with that kind of resources, and the vision he has behind the product, for sure.
That's it.
Yeah, not a lot of stuff to add here. For me, it's like what Stefan already said. It's surprising how good each team works. Although we, for example, create a team. I know the software engineers, for example, but Stefan knew the product managers. So we never really matched them based on, yeah, they might work good together. Based on that, it's really surprising how good everything works. And for me, the learning was if you created the right environment for learning and like fail fast, each team, no matter how inexperienced or which people are there, can achieve crazy results. Sometimes we start with a team, we think, yeah, that's an awesome team. Like they have super skills. And then they get clearly outperformed by a team. We thought, yeah, we just put them together. That's really a surprising thing.
Yeah, which kind of points to Bella's comment about the vision, right? Because a team can have a lot of skills, but if they don't know where to apply them, of course, they will underperform. Okay, so last question for you guys. I'll start with Miki, who's been the last on the roll call for now, but now you'll be the first. So what are the key resources, either books, podcasts, workshops, that you recommend to the PMs when they join DPS, like how to get them ready for the DPS program? What do you guys give them as learning resources, Mickey?
I thought about this more from a software engineering perspective. So which resources are cool to create an understanding for software engineers? And there are two books in my mind, which are, I think, pretty good. It's The Unicorn Project by Gene Kim. It's like a book about the transformation of a big company from a waterfall and silo company into a cross-functional agile environment. From the perspective of software engineers, which makes it pretty clear that these are not evil persons, but just struggle with their problems and try to solve them. And the other one is Accelerate, the Science of Lean Software and DevOps. It's like an empirical study that the environment matters more than the actual skills on the team. So if you have the basic skills, every team can perform. And this is like a scientific proof, more or less, that it's actually working, at least for software engineering teams.
And which you guys have experienced at DPS as well, right?
Yes.
How about you, Bella?
When you come to DPS, you have like a whole shelf with a lot of books that you can read. But before, there are also some tips we give for the PMs and for the software engineers. We have a lot of books like Making Things Happen, or Agile Estimating and Planning, or for the engineers, we have like Clean Code, that everyone wants it when a batch begins. So we have a lot of different books. The thing I can say about my own experience is that when you come to DPS, it's not how much you knew before DPS, it's how much you learned during DPS. So I can say that the best is that to give your 100% when you are at DPS, because it's something that comes only once. Like you get these 3 months only once.
And how about Stefan?
What I definitely recommend to all the PMs is Marty Kagan's Inspired. And the book we urge every PM to read. On top of that is Story Mapping by Jeff Patton. So besides the actual tool, there's loads of interesting advice regarding communication with developers in that book. And what I like to suggest to the PMs as well is Rework by Jason Fried, which is a bit older, but I think he illustrates really, really well what you can do and how much you can achieve with things you already have when you leverage those. So these are the ones that come to my mind.
Absolutely. Great resources. Quite the library, I have to say. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
It was a pleasure.